Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the WU Mountaineer pregame show. Frank, we have finally made it. Today is game one, week one, and we couldn't be more excited about the Mountaineers getting ready to fire up the season. Frank Fear, of course, over on that side, and I have to always point the opposite way. He's above me, over here.
Oop,
As
we
Frank
lost
Fear,
Greg. There he is. You
and
came back. You're off there for
I
a second,
I
Greg.
must have been moving too much. I was pointing all directions. Also, Mike Fox joining us, and I'm sure all Mountaineer fans know that name, and a lot of football fans across the country know that name. Super Bowl champ, All-American at WVU, and a lengthy NFL career. We're tickled to death to have Mike Fox with us here on this pregame show. Mike, thanks for taking some time to join us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's going to be a great day to be a Mountaineer.
And Frank, I know we've been talking for weeks now about the excitement building up, and with the new regime in now, the old regime that's the new regime, and this bevy of new faces that are going to be gracing the field today. We've been talking about it a lot. We finally made it here, and I think everybody's fired up, ready to go and see what we're made of.
Absolutely. As they say, the proof is in the pudding, and we've been waiting. Here's Joey Foster, our good friend. Thanks for being with us, Joey. Hope everything's going. And he's already into the pit game there. Wow. At any rate, yeah, the proof is in the pudding, and so now we're just going to watch intently, obviously, and that's a reminder too that we're going to have a post game show 30 minutes after the final whistle. So we'll watch, we'll do the analysis, and then come back and join us.
Absolutely, and there's so many questions, and even listening to some of the pregame shows today on TV, the same questions are being asked at a lot of places, and that is, what kind of team are we going to have? Nobody knows for sure due to the transfer portal, and in West Virginia's case, 75 odd some players. New players coming in to fill out the roster spots, and nobody knows. I mean, it's just a lot of questions, and I think that's one of the reasons for the excitement. I mean, everybody's excited because college football is starting, but we're excited because we want to see what kind of team we're going to have. And I think I don't know how many questions will be answered today, but at least we'll get to see them in action and kind of get a feel for it. Mike, it's changed a lot since you guys were in college, and me, and we knew who our players were and who they were going to be from year one to year four. And, you look back at the 88 team, for example, played in the national championship. We had 5 fifth-year seniors on the offensive line. That's the kind of thing we're probably not ever going to see again. And, this new era of football is obviously different. And I think that, not knowing, it's part of the excitement. It may not be what people like, but it is part of the excitement to find out what team you're going to have. So I get your thoughts on that.
Well, it's kind of like the way I see it. It's a unrestricted free agency frenzy, number one. And number two, remember when this might be a little more organized than that, but remember when we were all young and everybody, 20 guys showed up at a field and you split the teams up and you just went out there and you played some football. Well, we got 70 something new guys, and I think they got 70 something new guys, and we got coaches on our side, they got coaches on their side. It comes back down to the basics. Can we run the ball? Can we run it? Do we have big dogs up front that can, be road graders? They got to be road graders with an attitude. And then, can we stop the run? Can our defensive backs, can they do man coverage? Man coverage extremely is going to be important. These people throw the ball nowadays. It's not just a third of the time anymore. It's 2/3. So we need to, get back to the basics. We don't build a house starting with the chimney top. We start with the foundation. And on both sides of the ball here, we got to, you got to have a good line before anybody can do anything. Those guys don't get those guys don't get much credit, but the game starts there. So that's what I see.
Absolutely, for sure. Frank, you and I, we've talked again weekly about the opponent, and the fact that the last couple of years we started with some prominent opponents and openers, and that's been pretty tough on us. And I think we talked the other night about this opponent, this opener, being, and I think what we need, especially now with the situation as it is with all the new folks, this opener gives us an opportunity to, maybe not like we said the other night, not answer a lot of questions, but at least you get an opportunity to to play a live game. You get an opportunity to play some folks that may not normally get any playing time, and all those type of things. You get to evaluate some folks. So I think this game is important for those reasons.
Yeah, most definitely. I think it's important. You got to get out there and put your teams together and start competing against other jerseys. And it's a big game for both clubs, but it's a real big game for West Virginia. So we need to know what we're going to put out there for as we move through the season, and obviously Robert Morris, they need to know what they got to put out there too. And you look at their roster, they got a lot of kids from the surrounding areas, just like a lot of young men that are at West Virginia. So there's going to be a lot of competition on that field today. I'm pretty sure it's going to be pretty tough for about 3 quarters.
Yeah. Frank, your thoughts about the opponent and what it means, why it's important. We talked about this, of course, but why you think it's important that we play an opponent like this to open the season up?
Well, I'm just going to take a page out of what you said on Wednesday night on our Wednesday night show, and that is we've been opening up with really tough openers. Penn State last year. And so it's good that we have Robert Morris. They're in the Northeastern Conference, which in basketball terms would be a lower mid-major. And it's a good prep game given a change in coaching regime. And also, everybody who's watching probably knows this, but Ohio gave Rutgers a hell of a game the other night. In fact, Rutgers had to kick a field goal in the fourth quarter to win by 3. And Ohio came back and tied the game at 31. And then they kicked the field goal, Rutgers did. So Ohio's going to be a tough game next week, and then Pitt follows that. So this is, I think we have to pay special attention today because, as we were talking about on Wednesday, you're not going to have a lot of time to you can't make big adjustments. You can certainly make improvements. That's why this game is important. And I'm glad we're opening up against Robert Morris versus a Penn State.
Yeah, when you don't know, you're practicing against each other every day, and you just don't really know what you do have. And Coach Rodriguez has talked about what type of players he wants, what he's looking for. So it's going to give him a chance to evaluate this and just see, And before we go any further, Frank, I want to introduce someone to you. This is my niece, and she is the biggest WVU Mountaineer fan and the biggest Mountaineer locker room fan in the country. I'm at her house, their house up in Suffolk, Virginia, Whaleyville, Virginia today. And I told her we had to get her some airtime because she is number one fan. She was the courtside with Coach CRIST fan of the year. She was always up there.
Good.
I want to introduce her. This is Katie. Katie, this is my Fox Super Bowl champion, and that is Frank Fear, my co-host.
Very good, Katie. Welcome.
Hey, how are you?
Let's get Katie's thoughts on the game. Katie, what do you think today?
Well, I think it's going to be a good one. I think we're looking at a dub. I would hope. We get a dub. But I think it's going to be a good one. It's a good one to start off the year with.
That's what we were just talking about. That's what we just said. It's going to be a good one to start with.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thanks, bub.
Yeah. And buffalo chicken dips ready. So.
Okay. All right. I got to go, guys. Yeah, she's a big fan. She's always supported our shows, and she loves watching, and she loves Mountaineers. So we were up here visiting, and they all come over to this house to watch the game today. So she knew I was going to be on. They were all excited about it. So she wanted to. I told her I'd get her on some airtime there. So
yeah, it's good.
Anyway, talking back about Robert Morris. I know a lot of people, don't like this kind of a game, but if you look at other teams, and I know it's a little different this year. It seems like there's a lot of teams that are playing really good opponents to start the season. I mean, you got State and Texas kicking off. You've got Notre Dame, Miami. You got some big time games coming up. But historically, if you look back, most of these teams, Alabama's, all of them, play lesser opponents to start the season for the reason that we talked about, and that is to get a gauge on your team. And, I just think with the transfer portal as it is today, I think that's just something that's vitally important. I think you've got to do that in order to just figure out where you're at. And even if it's a lesser opponent, you're still playing a game. And just like Mike said, they got guys, they got coaches, they're athletes, and you got, and they compete, and that's what you need. You need somebody different to play against. And Frank, we've talked about that enough about Robert Morris and their schedule and that sort of thing. But again, important, I think, and it's a big game for us. There's our predictions. Frank put them across the bottom of the screen, and Mickey's the one that always kills us in that thing. So hopefully we can take Mickey down this week, Frank. If he starts off winning again like he did last year, we're going to cut him. He's out. We'll put him in the transfer. We'll put him in the transfer portal. We'll bring Mike in.
Hey, Mike, I have a question for you. What are your memories of openers at WVU when you played for the Mountaineers? Is there one opener that sticks out to you? What was it like?
Man, that was so long ago, but there was an opener that was early in my career that and I just don't know, I forget the name of the team, but I actually got to play a minute. So I was young and I got to get out there and do some stuff. So it felt like a good day, you know what I'm saying? So
yeah, I was going to ask you,
I have to go back and look at the schedule to remember who it was.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about, you got to play a minute. What do you think these guys that don't, start off in their careers playing a lot, a game like this gives them an opportunity maybe to get in and get some game time. What's that mean for a player? I mean, I know that, the guys out there practicing all the time, working hard, getting an opportunity to play, it's got to be helpful to the whole program.
Well, yeah, you always want to if you can get your youth movement moving early, which means your veteran guys have done their job in the game, especially these early games, then yeah, you want as much experience as you can get under everybody's belt. I mean, because you just never know when your day might come. I mean, that's the bottom line. You need to be prepared at all times to be inserted into a game. Somebody could get hurt like in a second. This is not it's not an easy sport, and it's not an easy game. So confidence they build. I mean, everybody that's here, they've had success at the high school level. So, the old saying is if they can make plays in high school, then they should be able to make plays in college. But, it all depends on the program and how you're received into the program. So is the program ready to take somebody that is trainable and being able to be molded like clay? And that's what I think. And I've never seen that theory go wrong. So you never know who's going to be the guy when you're going to need one that needs to be plugged in. So that's the game. That's why everybody's got to pay attention and be ready to go. At all costs, be ready to go, because you don't want to disappoint your teammates.
Yeah. Frank, we'll get your thoughts on this. We've talked about all the positions. We'll talk about that a little bit here in just a moment. But I wanted to touch base with you about the fact that WVU with like I said, the new staff, the new players, all the questions that we have to answer, and the scores. And we talked about again the other night. I don't want to keep saying that, but we talked about the score predictions and mentioned the fact that all of us felt like that if we played a team like this, we should not be giving up a bunch of points to this team. We, in all of our scores, we had them at a pretty low total. If you win this game, you want to win no matter what. But if you win it, 41-30 or something to that effect, it'd be cause for concern. Well, what's your thoughts about, we again picked the scores, but all of us picked them low. So what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what you've got to look at. That's why I think, it's really important we take a good analytic eye at today's game. Good question by Andrew Allison here about the tight end room. Well, and I said this on Wednesday's show. We had big stud out there, 6'7" guy last year. And now I'm looking at Grayson Barnes. I think it's strong. Let me see if everybody can see this. Put it up here. Let me, by the way, get Andrew's comment off there so we can see it a little bit better there. And let me try to expand it too, so we can see what the two deep looks like, and you can see it at tight end with Grayson Barnes and Jacob Barrick. And I think, Grayson did a good job. He's coming in from Northern Illinois. Jacob Barrick has a tremendous advantage because he played under the scheme at Jackson State. By the way, Jackson State gave Central Florida all Central Florida wanted last night. Central Florida won 17-10, but Jackson State was in the game all night. So your thoughts on that, Mike, and about the question there about the tight end? What are your thoughts?
Well, those guys look like they're good sized guys. So, you can't coach size. So if they got the skills to go along with it, I think, two tight ends is good to have, especially if you got one that's can outdo the other. But, we just talked about depth. So I think they're in a good spot with those tight ends, and hopefully they can utilize them. So,
yeah.
Yeah, you look at Barnes. He big, good size. I mean, these guys, and in Rodriguez's offense, I think he started using the tight end a little bit more as he progressed through his career at Jacksonville State. It wasn't a key point of the offense, but it was a vital part of the offense. It wasn't the go-to guy all the time, obviously. But it is an important part of his offense and the scheme. And, it looks to me like, as far as the tight ends are concerned that we have now, they're not 6'7", but 6'4", 220 is pretty good size. And they're athletic from what I understand. So, and again, I think that's the type of player Rodriguez likes, is that, not necessarily the biggest guy, but maybe the most athletic guy. And these tight ends are more athletic, I think, than even a Cole Taylor. I mean, he was solid, obviously, had that great size and good hands. But these guys seem to be more athletic. So I think that's, again, important for the type of offense that Coach Rodriguez likes to run. And again, when he was here before, the tight end rarely was used, for anything other than blocking. I think he's changed a little bit where they do go throw to the tight end some. But I don't think that, I don't know how to say this without sounding coarse, but I don't think that if we're not good at tight end, that it's going to wreck our offense. Maybe that's a good way to put it. But I think we're okay there. I think we're okay at the tight end spot. I think there's bigger questions about the offense.
And another thought. And another thought to consider on tight end with their athleticism, sometimes they can wheel them back there and they can become a fullback as well with the newer, they've eliminated in different places the fullback to a degree, and they're using the tight ends on the roster to fulfill some form of a fullback position. So I think that they got the athleticism, and there's some things you can do with them back there. So, and did you want me to talk about the offensive line? You said.
Well, I was going to say, I think that's probably a bigger question for us is the offensive line. And Frank, if you want to put the depth chart up there again, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I think the offensive line is where a lot of folks have questions, and whether or not we're going to be as good as we have been at that offensive line spot. So, yep, Mike, if you want to go ahead and talk about that offensive line a little bit, go right ahead.
Yeah, well, the good news is they got a bunch of big guys, and they look like they're good size, and that's the first thing. And then the next thing is, can they knock people off the ball, and can they pass pro for their quarterback? So I'm going to think that most of them could probably knock them off the ball, and then we just got to worry about the pass rush, and hopefully we can we do that. I'm sure they're being trained properly. But, that's why we're going to have this game today. So we're going to see it's going to be West Virginia offensive line against Robert Morris's defensive line, and then our defensive line against Robert Morris' offensive line. So I think we'll stack up pretty good in that department. Just, we got to get our rhythm, and, offensive linemen, they definitely have to play together a couple weeks before they almost gel. So, and with the way the transfer portal is, and you got an unrestricted free agency frenzy every year almost for the last couple of years at this point now. It's just gotten more, but it takes a minute to get everybody to gel. So hopefully they can do it fast.
Yep. Frank, your thoughts on our offensive line?
Well, actually, you guys covered it well. I think I'm really looking at Langston Livingston at center. Yeah. You remember we had a couple of situations last year with bad snaps, and it wasn't just an ad hoc one after, there was one after the other that really hurt us on drives. And as I said on Wednesday night, it's really important to sustain drives, and you can't do that without a good offensive line. We lost a lot of players to Virginia Tech. So this is the major area of reconstruction that's arguable, obviously, with so many people coming in, as you mentioned, Greg. But that offensive line has to be able to work well and sustaining drives. The other thing I think, and it goes back to something Mike said about being ready, is injuries. You can't plan for injuries per se, but people have to be ready to go in. And I was struck, we're not even into Saturday yet, and quarterbacks are going down. 3 quarterbacks went down. The Missouri quarterback, I think, went down in the first play of the game. Wisconsin quarterback went down. And the Oklahoma State quarterback transfer they got from TCU, that looks to be maybe the most serious of the 3. And so I'm not suggesting anything about our quarterback situation. We have depth there. But that's the wild card in all of this. And I think do we have the kind of depth that can withstand the need for second, possibly third man up? And Mike put it really, really well. They really have to be ready, obviously.
Yeah, and I think again that's one of the importance of playing a game like this, because if you look back years past, one of the problems we've had, and a lot of times that's the difference in some of these programs and ours. You look at in Alabama, for example, you lose a right tackle. Well, you've got a second team All-American comes in as as the backup. So they got that depth at those positions, and that's so important. And we don't always have that, so I think it's important that they get playing time in games like this, so we can develop that. And I think that's going to be big key for us. The injuries, of course, that's always an issue, no matter what level you're at. Middle school, high school, college, pros. You have injuries, it's problematic, and staying healthy is vital. And like you said, the quarterback thing, that's kind of scary when you see that happening. And quarterbacks now, though, it's a little different. Even back when Mike played, you had quarterbacks like a Jeff Hostetler, who was athletic, could run, but that wasn't his forte. He threw the ball and handed the ball off, and you didn't want your quarterback out there running around because too big a risk for injury. Nowadays, and even especially in an offense like Coach Rodriguez's, a quarterback's a vital part of the running game, and injuries, that seems to, come along with that. Obviously, if you're out there with the ball in your hands, the more times you carry it, the more chances there is that you're going to get hurt. But the good thing is for us, we do have that depth at quarterback. I think that lessens that worry a little bit. I mean, you don't want anybody to get hurt, obviously, but it does lessen the worry about it if you got a capable backup. So a game like this is important for these offensive linemen, I think, to get out there and show what they can do, get that game experience, get a little playing time under their belt, because at some point in time during the year they're going to be called upon. No question about it. I mean, it's just the nature of the game. There are going to be injuries, and people are going to have to fill in for them. So yeah, that's crucial. And I think the offensive line is the big question mark, and it's going to be interesting to see. And like Mike said, we got some big guys. I mean, you look at those sizes. That's some big old boys up there, 300 pounders. So you hope that we can move people around, and one of the things too that you think back of Coach Rich Rod's offenses is those offensive linemen have to move. They do a lot of zone blocking and pulling and moving. So you hope with this size that they're able to do that as well. So it's going to be fun to watch, just to figure it all out. And Mike, you played down in the trenches, and so we'll get your thoughts about it. I know you have an affinity for linemen, so get your thoughts on the line and what we need to see.
Well, I mean, you guys said it absolutely correct. But the big thing is with the injuries, you in all the positions. Okay, the fact that the quarterbacks are getting hurt means maybe these offensive linemen in these places need to be addressed. Your first 4 to 6 weeks, you don't even know what team you're going to have at the end of the year in most cases, especially in the NFL. So part of it is nobody's, I'm not trying to say nobody's not doing their job, but I mean, you got to train harder. You got to be, you got to run. You got to get physical. The linemen, I don't know how much they hit, and I don't know how much that they do pass pro, and I don't know how much they do inside run anymore. But I do know one thing. I do know that at the pro level, they've simmered that down to where they don't do a lot of inside run. Well, you don't get good at inside run if you don't practice inside run, and that's a little bit of that. So the depth matters even more so now, because I don't think they're in some cases. I'm not saying all cases, but in some cases, in some programs, they're not training them hard enough. You got to forge steel with steel, and sometimes it's called exhaustion, and you got to work your guys till where they don't have any more air in their tank. So when you get into the fourth quarter and you got to make that push on either side of the ball, you can do it. I mean, that's the bottom line. But definitely we need depth, and definitely we're going to get a good test today, because those guys, they had a pretty good defense last year. As far as Robert Morris was concerned, I know they got 70 new guys, and we got 70 something new guys. And like I said, it's going to be a good game. Everybody's in the same region. Technically, I know we're not in the same type of divisions or conferences, but a test is a test. And it would do Robert Morris. They would love if they came into Morgantown and grabbed whatever $500,000 and got a victory out of us. Wouldn't want that. So, our guys will be tested. So, and so will our defense. Our defense will be tested too. So, I think our defense has got a good shot at having depth too. They're going to need it. So, I want our defensive backs to be able to play man coverage and everybody do their job. So, they do that.
Talking about
run to the ball. Run to the ball.
Talking about the defense. Let's jump over that defensive side, Frank. They again, a lot of questions, and defensive line, defensive backs, linebackers, all the questions. And Frank, I know you have looked at this a lot more than I have, so I want to throw it to you to talk about our defensive backs. I think that's a big concern that a lot of Mountaineer fans have. Last year was pretty much a disaster. I think our defensive coordinator, at the beginning of the season being gone, and then trying to piece together a defensive scheme back there. A lot of times we talked about schematics every week and how it felt like these guys didn't know where they were going and who they were supposed to cover and where they were supposed to be. Always somebody wide open. What do you think about that defensive backfield this year?
Well, I think it links to the way I'm going to respond. It links to what Mike was talking about earlier, and you were too. is under Rich Rod, the two things he's emphasized are not negotiable: physicality and energy. That's non-negotiable. You're not going to play unless you're physical and unless you have a lot of energy. And as the game goes on, those two commodities become extremely important, particularly the energy. And so, you look at, and I've said this before on other shows, you got a guy like, you look at the backside in particular. I'm going to be looking at Israel Boyce in particular, because that free safety position is so critical. And then you've got other guys there that are, Darian Lewis, who comes in from Akron, University of Akron, is really important. And I would say too, if you look at the linebackers, because obviously both rooms, the line is only as good as the linebackers, and the defensive backs, they're as good as the linebackers. Those linebackers obviously play a very important role because they're swing players. And one of the things that I think is really important, Chase Wilson comes in with a tremendous amount of promo. Fred Perry knows the system from Jacksonville State. Michael Coates at left side cornerback got a lot of press, maybe the best of the transfers from Nevada. And so you look at that lineup on the defensive side, and of course Vessinarian on the defensive tackle. If we add that, I mean, it's to me that's one of the, along with the offensive line, we just can't give up the big plays. Everybody remembers that 3rd and 30 against Pitt, that really, when West Virginia had the game won last year, in the last few minutes, we can't have that. So let's watch these guys, and let's just hope that these folks with the coaching that they've gotten from the coaching staff are going to perform, and we'll know pretty soon.
Yeah, don't you agree that it seemed like last year that it was just, it just seemed like the scheme was off. It just seemed like either the scheme was not good, or and I'm not a coach, and I don't coach football, and I don't know enough about it probably to even make these comments, but it just seemed like Kathy with a good comment there, put Mike in the game. I agree. He gets me fired up. And I was thinking, I'm glad he wasn't my coach over. But yeah, he'd be a great coach.
I'll give you 3 good plays. I'll give you 3 good plays.
Yeah.
I might be able to walk out.
Like I said, I can give you 3 good plays.
I like that.
But anyway, it just
that's
seemed
all
like
that matters. Just get on that field.
it just seemed like that the scheme, either the scheme was bad or the players just didn't understand it, because there were so many times, not just that Pitt game, but there were so many times when it'd be 3rd and 15 and they drop back, and you look, there's a guy running wide open, and he didn't pick up 15, he picked up 25, and you're like, what in the world is going on back there? And I have a hard time believing that these guys weren't athletes. They were athletic enough to play it. I just think that the schematics were bad, and I don't think the kids understood what they were doing. And I think having a little bit more stable, coaching position coaches and that in line now it's got to help. It's got to make it better. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd say this, Greg, along those lines. Last year, there were questions that were ongoing about the quality of I hate to put it this way, the quality of the assistant staff. And it eventually led to the defensive coordinator being let go. You can't do that this year. I mean, you got Zach Alley, who came in, and we had a guest on the show from Oklahoma earlier this year, and he was raving about what a get you guys got to get Oklahoma's defensive coordinator to go to Morgantown. And so the quality of the assistant coaches is at a high level. And for Rich Rod to be able to assemble that crew in short order, it was incredible. But that's because of his reputation. So you got really good coaches. And so what you're talking about, Greg, shouldn't be a problem. They should know the scheme. They're drilled in the scheme. And now it's the ability to be able to to execute. That's the key. One of the points Rich Rod made, which is so important, and Coach Brown brought it up before, and that is sometimes people will complain about the scheme didn't work. And the response is, well, it wasn't executed the right way. And that's why the scheme didn't work or the play didn't work. But again, it's for us to watch these things in just a matter of about an hour.
Yeah. And I heard you talk about the assistant coaches. I heard Coach Nealon one time years ago. Somebody had asked him about his success at WVU, and he said one of the keys to his success was being able to keep good assistant coaches. And I remember one year all in the news was he had been offered a pay raise, and he declined the pay raise and asked them that they give that to the assistant coaches so that he could keep them. And he talked about how important it was, to keep those guys in the fold, because it meant so much to the stability of the program. And you have to think that was a major part of the problem last year. And again, hopefully with who we got in there now, that it may not be totally evident immediately, but over time it'll begin to show, and you'll be able to see the results of it, I'm sure. Other areas, I think, in the defensive line, you haven't heard a lot of talk about that, but it's extremely important. If the defensive backs are going to have success, the defensive line has to be good, and the defensive line has to put pressure on the quarterback, and that makes the defensive back's job so much easier. And again, if you want to put the chart up, kind of look at these defensive linemen that we have. I'm not going to sit here and try to make stuff up about it. I don't know a lot about them. I've watched a few videos on a few of them. I understand that one of the guys that was involved in the lawsuit to get eligible is going to be a vital part of that defensive line. I don't know if he'll be ready to play or not, but Mike, I'm going to get, you're a defensive lineman. I'll get your take on the importance of the defensive line and on this year's lineup.
All right. Well, here's what I think. Probably for the first time in a minute, they've probably got more depth at defensive line than probably I've seen in a long time. So the guys that are in between lawsuits and trying to get playing time, I hope that they can get the playing time that they're looking for. But I feel pretty good about the guy that's, either beside him or behind him. So I think they're good at, 3 deep and a couple others that are, kind of getting older behind all that. And, but, we're going to see. We're going to see what they can do. So they run a 3. It's technically a 3-man front. So, these guys need to know how to hit somebody. They're going to have to strike them and knock them back. That part hasn't changed. And then they're going to have to go get the passer when it's time to get the passer. So we'll see. But as far as their depth, I think they got a lot of depth in a lot of good ways. They got at least 2 good nose tackles. They got 2 good left ends and 2 good right tackles. And then probably a couple other guys that could fill in and get some of that, precious playing time experience that they'll definitely need throughout the year. So the year don't get any easier. It keeps getting, bigger. Like, this we gotta beat Robert Morris today, and we need to concentrate on that. And we can't let them run the ball, and we can't let them throw. So gotta just smother them. Run to the ball. Defense is fun. 75% of it's perspiration. You got to run and hustle, and the other part, 25%, is mental. Just do your mental. Do your mental. The 3 A's: alignment, assignment, and adjustment. That's it. And go get the ball carrier. I don't care who's got it. Go get it. Everybody runs to the ball. Nothing good happens if you're not running to the ball. Let me just put it that way. So if you run to the ball, something might happen. You might get a fumble. You might get somebody knock the ball out and cause a fumble for your buddy. And you don't know. Just run to the ball. So
There you go.
And I think they got
I-
talent.
I'm getting ready. I'm feeling ready. I'm feeling like I'm ready to run the ball. Frank, one thing I noticed about it too is, again,
Well,
the
good.
size of
That's
these
good.
guys.
You need to run. You got to run.
I was looking at the size of some of these guys, and we've got they're big guys, and also one thing I noticed, there's a couple of names that actually started last year, played a lot, that are on the on the two depth side of things. I think that might be a good sign, and that you've had competition at the defensive line, and the cream has risen to the top, so to speak, and so I think that bodes well as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm more concerned, I think, with the linebackers, and I know, again, we've heard some good things about some of the linebackers. We talked one week about one of the linebackers, and I'm not going to say a name because I don't want to do that. But I remember last year in some of our post-game discussions talking about how much trouble this linebacker had covering people, and then for him to be the key linebacker, according to this one publication, concerns me a little bit because he did struggle in pass coverage. Again, that could have been schematics. I don't know, but I worry a little bit about the linebacker corps. What's your thoughts there on the defensive line and linebackers, Frank?
Well, yeah, I mean that's an area that that we know there's been an influx, and people like Ben Bogle and others are not, I wouldn't say being replaced, but there are other folks that are higher on the. And I think it really, one player that I think played, we talked about this last year, played better as the season went on, but there were still questions about whether or not at certain points, what about his presence? And that's Reed Carrico. And so he's a player to watch, I would think. But let me switch to the offense just for a second. And a player who's not going to play, and we miss him. Guess who scored the first touchdown in the Ohio State-Texas game today?
I'm going to guess the quarterback by the name of Manning.
C.J.
Donaldson.
C.J. Donaldson scored for
kidding.
Ohio State, and we don't have him. I'm just looking at that. But, yeah, I think that now, from my read, your reads may be different. My reads of the Rich Rod's press conferences, I didn't get the sense that he was concerned as much about the linebacking room as it maybe others are. And I think the proof is going to be in the pudding. We don't know. But I'm going to be watching Reed Carrico and looking at especially the shuffle. How many people are brought in to play that linebacking position? Yeah. And if there's any drop off when they make their shifts. Because, playing in the Big 12, you got to have strong linebackers. There's just no way around it.
All right. Well, as we're starting to
one of the things I like.
Go ahead, Mike.
One of the things I like about the linebacker question, we do have an old war dog over there named Chris Herring. He was my linebacker when I played at West Virginia. So he's doing some stuff with the team, and I'm sure that he's assessing the linebacker situations and probably being able to give some really good, real input to the matter. So I think the linebackers will be fine. And just like y'all said, we know people run the ball, but they definitely throw the ball in the Big 12. So I mean, it's like lights out throwing the ball. So we got to have linebackers and D-backs that can play man to man. So that's it.
Yep.
And we got to have D linemen to get to the ball and then sack the quarterback.
There you go. All right. We're starting to wind down time-wise here just a little bit, Frank. Got about 10, 15 minutes left. One of the things, Mike, we like to do before we sign off is talk about what we think the keys to this game today are going to be. So, Mike, I'm going to start with you, and I want you to just give your input on what you think the keys will be to the Mountaineer victory today.
The Mountaineer victory today, we're going to have to be able to run the ball and hold on to it and get major yardage and knock people off the ball on the offensive side of the ball and see how all that works out. And then obviously we're going to have to protect the quarterback when we drop back to pass. And then on defense, we're going to have to, stop their run and get after their pass rusher when it's time. That's it. It's basic. And everybody hustle and run. There's no plays to take off. You can go rest after the game. You just keep going until the game is over. When there's 3 or 4 zeros on that clock and there's no more time, then the game is over. After that, you can go home and go to bed. That's it.
All right, and Mike's score, as you can see, Frank has up on the screen. Mike's score prediction is 38-15 Mountaineers, and again, we're going to keep a close eye on these scores. And if Mickey Plumley hits it, if he hits it close or right, I'm going to be suspicious. Something's going on. But Mike picked 38-15. Frank, what's your keys to the game?
Well, I talked about it a bit on Wednesday, and we've covered a good number of those. You brought them up, Greg. The one I'm going to bring up is the kicking game, because we haven't talked about the kicking game. Michael Hayes did a great job place kicking last year. He's gone. Coastal Carolina's Cade Hensley has come in, and the place kicking is important. Obviously, with Oliver Straw, the punting is in great hands. But the other person, two other people I'd bring up, Ethan Head. It's really important for us to get touchbacks if they score. And certainly if, for example, we lose the toss at the beginning of the game, put the ball in the end zone. That's Ethan Head's job. Let's look for that. And also it looks like Preston Fox is the first man in for both punt returns and kickoff returns. So those are the areas I'm looking at. And one other thing I'll bring up is I am sort of in shock. We're the early game on Saturday, right? No other game is before us, and all of the games are after. So that means that we're the first Saturday game. Already, Cincinnati lost to Nebraska. Already, Baylor lost to Auburn. Already, Kansas State lost to Iowa State. And already, Georgia Tech beat Colorado. If you asked me, guys, to say we would have that many Big 12 teams lose, particularly in intersectional games, I would say, wow. The other thing I would say, and I forgot to mention, I don't know if you saw the Army game last night against Tarleton State. Tarleton State in Texas, right? It's not even a group of 5, I don't believe, team, but it's not a major team. Army missed 2 field goals, one at the end of the game and one in overtime. Tarleton State beat Army at Army. And so when I think about that Ohio game coming up, that kicking game, place kicking game is going to be really, really critical.
Yep, I agree with you. And we talked about the kickoffs last year. That was, the kickoff coverage and the kickoffs themselves was problematic, as was punt coverage. And, one of the things that can just totally destroy your momentum and your morale is giving up a punt return or a kick return for a touchdown. It just brings everybody down. I think we saw that in the Baylor game where we had the game in hand, winning big, end up giving up a couple of run backs for touchdowns. It just demoralizes you. And we haven't had a kicker for a while that can put that thing in the end zone like every time, and I think we need that. I think that's important, and especially if your coverage is not great. Which ours hasn't been.
A third.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, special teams is a third. It's a big third. Think about it. Games are won and lost by 3 or less points for the most part. So you give up a touchdown, you miss a field goal, you miss an extra point. My Lord, we're upside down real fast, because if most games are determined by 3 or less points, then you're in trouble if you can't do the little things. So that's 1/3 of your team that needs to be responsible for being that part of the team. So it's offense, it's defense, it's special teams. It's all of them. 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. Do your part, and guess what? You can walk out with a victory. That's the number one thing. So special teams is big. People forget about them. They're talking about offense, they're talking about defense, but that third, those extra points and field goals and kickoff returns and, kickoff coverages and punt coverages and punts, big time deal in the game. Got to
Yep.
emphasize it.
Yep, sure do. It all adds up. And again, I think everybody's interested in seeing that. I know that, because that was a constant complaint last year. And I think people will be curious to see with some new people in place. I think the punting game is going to be fine, obviously. We have an experienced and good punter. Hopefully the coverage is good. And like Frank said, hopefully we can get that thing in the end zone. And again, people are anxious to see how good this kicker is, because like you said, a lot of games are won and lost with that kicking game. So it'll be interesting to see. I think one of the keys, obviously in every game is turnovers. I think we gotta limit or not have any turnovers and force some on the other side. Again, that was another. We didn't turn it over a ton last year, but we didn't create a lot of turnovers either. And I think that's important that our defense create some turnovers. I think our pass defense is going to be crucial. I want to see how that is, and I think that'll be a vital part of the game. I think our offense will be fine. I think we're going to score points. I just think the key to the game will be our defense and how well they perform. Pass defense obviously included. Frank, what was you want to put those scores back up there again? I missed yours. I want to make sure everybody gets to see that. All right, so Mike or Frank's score is 56-7. So Frank's seeing a big offensive output. My score prediction is 42-13. I said I thought we might give up a touchdown late just because we have a lot of backups in the game. Mickey's is 48-10. So hopefully for sure one of us is right, and we do get to win. But I think the Mountaineers will go out and it'll be businesslike. I don't think we'll show a lot of flair on offense. I think we'll go out and try to establish the run, and I'm sure he wants to work on the passing game some, so I'm sure we'll throw it some. But I think we'll get that run game established first, and see how it goes from that point. But I think it'll be a business-like performance. I think they'll go out and take care of business. Frank, your thoughts before we sign off?
Well, I think we've really it was really a good analysis because we've covered so many of the aspects that, when you're reading and talking with fans, watching on TV, listening to Coach Rodriguez and others, there's a lot to look for. And the other point you made, Greg, I think is really important that shouldn't be understated. They're not going to show a lot today, so it's going to be a basic game plan. I mean, people may laugh, but Ohio, and I don't think people will in the case of Ohio, they showed last night they're formidable. Rutgers, I'm sure if you heard Coach Schiano after the game, they were lucky to get, that's not the word he used, but they were put through the test, and that was a road game for Ohio. Ohio's going to be home next week, and then Pitt obviously is always a big game comes in. Kansas is the only team so far that's 2-0, and then we go to Kansas. In fact, what I can do is let's put up the schedule here. I have it somewhere. There it is. So we can see the schedule that's coming up with Robert Morris today. Ohio was 11-3 last year. Pitt, and then Kansas, and then we come home and play Utah. And of course, Ohio's already played. Pitt is going to play, I think, Duquesne today. Kansas, as I mentioned, is 2-0, but they have not played strong programs. Utah has yet to play. So we're raring to go. Kickoff is about 35 minutes away.
Yep. Mike, your final thoughts.
Just get back to the basics. I don't care if we're in base formation, win your position, knock people off the ball, knock them back on defense, do your job, do it with 100% vigor, and, make it happen. So you should be able to play in base or not have to give away the farm when you're playing the first couple games. And I think they'll do it today. And I just think it's a good day for Mountaineer Nation. We're kicking off a new year. And all I can say is, let's go Mountaineers. Let's go. Let's get it done.
There we go. All right. And, one of the things Mike mentioned there, and I think, again, this is something else. I keep thinking of things, but something else I think people are going to be looking at today is the physical nature of this team. I think one of the things that a lot of people have been asking for over the last few years is get that physicality back that we used to play with Mountaineer football. And I think Rich Rod has put an emphasis on that, on being tough, playing hard, playing fast. And I think people are looking forward to seeing that come to fruition today. And I think that's going to be an interesting thing to look at, just to see if we have that different moxie about us, if we have a difference in our approach to the game. So I think that's going to be something to watch as well. All right, guys, great job. Enjoyed this, and looking forward. We've got about 30 minutes till kickoff. We want to remind everybody that we will be back roughly 15, 20 minutes after the game concludes. And Frank's put up there roughly about 5:30. So we'll go by the game time, 15, 20 minutes after it ends. We will be back with Mike and Frank as well for the post-game show. And we'll be able to look back and talk about the things that we talked about earlier, and to see whether or not that we were right, wrong, or indifferent. And we can get all that discussion in after the game. So make sure you tune in for that. Make sure you let your friends and neighbors know that we will be on with a post-game show 20 minutes after the game concludes today. If for nothing else, for Frank and for Mike, I'm Greg. I look forward to seeing you on the post-game show. Let's go Mountaineers, and let's get that win, and we will talk to you after the game.